Cheryl Quigley, specialist advice. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So we're really excited because it's going to be a great forum to sort of work through some problems that people have with bubbers and toddlers. And we've got, a great range of expertise here. Maybe if we could start with you, Gerald. Now, you are a pharmacist, but we love you on The Circle because you're also a herbalist.
Yes.
Let's talk about, first of all, what do you see as the biggest problem when parents are trying to treat health issues and fever? What should they be thinking about before sort of immediately defaulting to Panadol, immediately defaulting to medication?
I think running to medication is an easy option, Georgie, and we really need to just step back and have a look at something like temperature as a single indicator of whether a child is well. So if you've got a child with a temperature who's bouncing off the walls and they go to their local pharmacy and tear it apart, they're pretty good. If they have a temperature and they're tired, lethargic, non-responsive, they need to be checked out by their doctor, someone who can actually give some proper advice. So instead of rushing to that bottle in the cupboard where the advertising says you're an inappropriate parent unless you have it, we need to just look at other options gently first, like lowering a temperature, keeping fluids up, keeping an eye on them.
Okay. Is lowering the temperature as simple sometimes of getting the old-fashioned flannel and wetting it and cooling their forehead?
It can be, Colin. And what temperature is in fact the greatest resistance we have to infection. So if you rush out and drop a temperature very quickly, it often allows an infection to continue growing. So the response to temperature is within all of us, adults as well as children and babies. We need to just let it run its course for a while.
Yeah. Now, Joe, there's so many issues with settling babies, but I've heard quite a number of people have trouble settling toddlers as well. Are there any magic tricks for those issues?
Well, I mean, toddlers can be a little bit trickier because, they're going to talk back to you and tell you or jump out of bed. So I think it's really important to have a ritual, like have that evening bedtime ritual and go through those things that you need to do every night. And toddlers have a habit of using stalling techniques, like, I need another drink, I need another hug, I'm scared, this. So if you kind of go through all those things one by one, and tick them off the list and have a sort of set bedtime, I think toddlers get tired really quickly. So, most toddlers should be in bed around 7:30-ish, just so they get that nice big chunk of deep sleep. Sort of help them.
And the longer you keep them up doesn't mean the longer they sleep in the morning.
No, in fact, quite the opposite, Colin. The longer you keep them up, the tighter they are, they don't sleep as well. And often they're up at 5 a.m. then, sort of wanting to get going because they just haven't kind of gotten the right nice sleep through the night.
Can we just quickly talk about your technique, Joe, with putting babies, let's say we've got parents watching now that it may be at the 12-week stage and it's always hard because people always say, oh, is your baby sleeping through yet?
I know, it's the pot of gold, isn't it?
What are some of your tips to help parents be able to get their babies to self-settle?
Well, I think the thing is to have realistic expectations. Young babies under 12 weeks often can't self-settle, so you do need to often help them, and that's okay. But that said, don't be afraid to try to put them down awake. Don't always be assisting them to sleep if you don't have to. If everything's fine and they're fed and they're happy and they're tired, put them to bed awake. So sort of try to reduce the amount of intervention you're doing, and if you are having to settle them off to sleep, try and settle them in their bed rather than on you as they get a bit older. And try not to feed off to sleep so much as they're getting closer to sort of 6 months.
So let's say I put my little one down, screaming in the cot, but check the nappy, I've checked how much feed, any other issues. I should maybe sit on a chair next to the cot and put my hand on the baby. What should I be doing to help them self-settle?
For a 3-month-old, you're saying? I would sort of pat them. So pat them on their shoulder or their chest. They're still probably wrapped. If they're really upset, pick them up and calm them down and then put them back down. Okay, so the aim is that you can pick up as often as you like, but you want them ultimately to fall asleep in their bed so they get used to that. But don't leave them to cry. I'm not a fan of that. When they're that little. Not that little, because they need help. They need assistance to get to sleep often. A minute or, if it's just kind of a whingy, windy down cry before they go to sleep, that's fine.
And I think having someone else there to help you through that is really important. So maybe swap with you, with your partner or a mum or a good girlfriend, because it's quite confronting hearing your little one cry.
It is, and it's very frustrating too when they won't go to sleep and they need to go to sleep. But overtired babies are really hard to put to sleep. So step back, and let someone else step in if you're feeling a little bit you know, overwhelmed.
And Jackie, you're helping mothers and fathers communicate with their children through signing.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
The idea is that your baby can use their hands from around 4 or 5 months of age. You'll see them holding rattles or toys, so they can use their hands then to communicate with you using sign language. And it just bridges that gap of pre-verbal communication, so they don't go through the terrible twos as much because they're able to tell you with their hands what it is they want and what they need.
What would be an example? Could you show us an example, Jackie?
Milk, which is always a favourite.
Yes.
Teddy bear, which is also a favourite. Books. So it's really important that you balance the practical signs for mums and dads, which would be your sleeping, your eating, your drinking, pain, for example, with your motivational signs, because it has to be fun for baby. So the fun signs could be your books or music, or maybe you have a pet dog. So having those fun signs make it really engaging for baby, and we'll get that sign back within depending on baby, it can be a couple of weeks to a couple of months.
Wow. And the floor manager is giving me this sign, which means take a break. Now, will we be back to continue this panel discussion right after this break? You're watching The Circle. Welcome back. We are with the ultimate baby panel, sleep expert Joe Ryan, sign language expert Jackie Durnan and pharmacist Gerald Quigley. We asked you at home to email us and Facebook us with your questions, and so it's time for some answers. Georgie.
It is, Colleen. Why don't we start with you, Gerald? The most common themes that came through from our viewers, nappy rash and teething.
And probably two of the most common things we confront, and we hope that they'll never be a problem, but they invariably are. Let's start with nappy rash. Now, nappy rash can be caused by lots of different things, and it's really important to make sure that the area, which is very sensitive anyway, is treated with respect. All ages, practically. But certainly from a baby's perspective, if you introduce different food groups, there's the likelihood that there's going to be a little bit of sensitivity. Things may go through their alimentary canal. Suddenly you've got pooey nappies more often. When they're left unattended, they can burn and they can irritate. So that area's got to be cleansed. It's got to be treated with a good, comprehensive antibacterial antiseptic cream. If things don't improve quickly, someone needs to see it, the local pharmacist, the local GP, and then it's a matter of protecting. So once the area's clean and neat and tidy and all healed, then you can put a protectant cream on the top, which is invariably zinc cream base, because it doesn't wash off when it's a urine-filled nappy. And bearing in mind that boys and girls are anatomically different, you'll find different areas often become affected.
Because their urine's quite acidic for the purpose of teething, isn't it?
Yes, and when teething comes, which is another very common problem, nappies often get very strong. Very strong. Puzzling thing about teething is that you can put a child to bed tired, cranky, irritable, and teething, of course, means you've got a child that can often change personality almost within minutes. But once the tooth comes through, suddenly they're happy and everything's back to normal. It's quite miraculous. But from a teething perspective, we've got pain, inflammation, irritability, just generally being unpleasant and unwell. So you've got to look at something to address all those things. Keeping the gums nice and cool with something nice and cold, so a toy in the fridge that's soft, a little gel-type toy. There are some good teething remedies out there that work very well. Not necessarily head to that bottle of anti-inflammatory that we talked about before the break. That doesn't have a lot of evidence to show it makes much difference. So you symptomatically treat just to balance the baby through the teething episode. So it's not an illness, it's just an episode of all these things that just go wrong, which might settle for days, and then you have a bad day, and settle for days, and you have another bad day.
Also, bum time's a good thing with nappy rash. Just give them airtime without any nappy on a towel.
Yep, sun time, out in a little bit of sunshine, bearing in mind it's almost illegal to go out into the sun these days, but sun is good. So no sunscreen on the backside, raw sun, because it's very healing and very soothing. It actually helps the baby make some vitamin D as well.
Now, Joe, we've got an email from Annie said that she has a 2-year-old, but there's also a second baby arriving in the household very, very soon. Have you got any tips on how to introduce the new baby into the mix, especially with the the other kids in the house?
Yeah, look, it's a bit tricky, and usually toddlers, obviously often they don't understand the concept, but they know things have changed now and mummy's attention is not on them totally.
Yeah.
So often their behaviour will change. Sometimes it's not sort of overt overtly against the baby. They just become a bit more sort of, you know, playing around a bit, not listening to directions, maybe waking during the night. So the thing is, I think it's important for the mothers, if they can, to still try and spend like one-on-one time with that toddler at least once a day when the new baby's kind of out of the picture in the bedroom sleeping, so that the toddler feels like there's still, you know, mummy is still there. There is still that attention, you know, for them. Yeah, so that's important.
And Jo, also a quick one we had was now that it's daylight savings, a lot of people have lighter rooms and their kids are all waking up early. Is there any way to stop that?
Well, hopefully, when daylight saving starts next weekend, doesn't it?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the curtains fade as well.
Yeah, I know. So the babies, it's usually a bit darker in the mornings, but yes, there's a problem with sort of putting them to bed in the light, you know, period of night. And again, it's important to have ritual around bedtime, you know. So you just have to go through the same process every night. You know, it means they're going to bed an hour earlier, but they'll be getting up an hour earlier. So it should sort of all pan out in the end. So ritual's really important around bedtime.
Always in daylight saving was it's light outside, Mum, and it's 35. It's hot.
Jackie, we had a couple of questions. Is it too late to introduce baby sign language if my little one is 1 or 2 years old?
Definitely not, because there'll be words that they haven't got their mouth around, so they can pick up signing really quickly. It could be a matter of days or weeks that they're signing back to you, and they won't go through the terrible twos or have as many tantrums because they're able to tell you what it is they want or what it is they need.
I see. And is it usual that they remember that sign language as they get older? And you should encourage it as well, I guess?
There is lots of research on why you should continue using it right up until they're primary age kids, because it engages the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. It causes a lot of brain activity. But parents generally just use it as a bridge to communication. But if the parents continue to use it, yes, the children will continue to use it and remember the signs.
Anything to stop those terrible tantrums from the toddlers. Can you please thank our panel this morning, Jackie Durnham, Gerard Quigley and Jo Ryan. Thank you, guys. Very helpful advice. And the Sydney Baby and Toddler Show is on from this Friday through to Sunday. All the details are on our website. And don't forget, if you missed some information or you want to tell a friend about it, you can watch the segment back on the video section of our website from later this afternoon. Now, here's